Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to do a deep dive into some seriously cool AI stuff. Stuff that's so advanced, it's almost like science fiction. We're talking about robots that can actually feel.
That's right. We're going deep into Meta's work in robotics, specifically touch perception. For robots to really interact with the world, like meaningfully and helpfully, they have to be able to feel.
Okay, so help me picture this. How are they doing that?
So imagine like a robot fingertip, but it's not just any fingertip. This one's called Digit 360, and it's got all these sensors. They're so advanced, it's like it can feel as well as a human fingertip.
Whoa, that's amazing. How does it even work?
Okay, so it has this really crazy optical system. It's basically like a high-speed camera in the fingertip. And when it touches something, it captures all these tiny changes in the fingertip's shape, like how it deforms.
Mhm.
It's not just sensing pressure, it's actually analyzing all little movements.
So it's like a tiny little eye that can see exactly how the fingertip reacts to different things. What kind of information can it get from that?
Right. It can pick up on incredibly small forces. I'm talking about the weight of like a grain of sand.
Hmm.
But that's not all. It can also sense vibrations, temperature changes, and even get an idea of the object's odor.
Wow, that's insane. It really seems like this fingertip can feel in a human way.
And there's more. It also has this built-in AI accelerator, like a tiny brain. It processes all that information from the sensors super fast, so the fingertip can react right away.
Okay, now that's really cool. If just one fingertip can do all that, imagine what they could do with a whole robot hand.
Exactly, and that's what they're working on.
Tell me more. How do they go from a fingertip to a whole hand?
Meta created this platform called Digit Plexus, and that's what they use to put those fancy sensors onto a whole robot hand.
That's unbelievable. It sounds like a robotics revolution.
I think so too, and get this, Digit 360 is going to be available to buy next year.
Really? So anyone will be able to use this technology?
Exactly. Think of all the possibilities, like helping people with prosthetics to actually feel things again.
That would change so many lives.
Absolutely. And think about virtual reality. You could actually feel the objects you're interacting with.
Wow, that's next level.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Digit 360 is clearly a big deal. But let's zoom out a bit.
Sure.
What else is Meta doing in this area?
Well, they've got this other project. It's called Meta Sparsh.
Meta Sparsh, what's that all about?
It's basically like a universal translator for touch. It's an AI that can understand data from all sorts of touch sensors, even ones they haven't specifically programmed it for.
So it's like the robot version of a Rosetta Stone for touch?
Yeah.
How does that even work?
Think of it like a huge library with everything about how things feel. That's what Meta Sparsh has learned. It can read that library and make sense of any touch data you give it.
So it can work with anything, not just Digit 360.
Yeah, and it's really good at it. It's way better than any other touch models out there. It can learn and adapt to all sorts of tactile experiences.
That's impressive. So what does all this mean for robots in the future?
Well, if we want robots to be truly useful, they need to be able to feel and understand those feelings. Meta Sparsh is getting us closer to that.
So it's not just about feeling, it's about learning from those feelings.
Exactly. That's what makes it so special. Robots can actually learn from what they touch.
Wow, all this is incredible.
Yeah.
It really feels like we're about to enter a whole new world with robots.
It is a pretty exciting time to be working on this stuff.
So we've covered a lot already, but there's still so much to talk about.
That's right. After the break, we'll talk about how Meta is teaching robots to actually work with humans using a system called PARTNR. So we're talking about robots actually working with humans. Meta's working on that too.
Yeah, this is where it starts to feel like the future is really here. Robot that can actually work with us, not just sense the world.
Right. And that's where PARTNR comes in. It stands for Planning and Reasoning Tasks in Human-Robot Collaboration. Basically, it's like a way to test how well AI can plan and make decisions when it's working with humans.
So it's like a training ground for robot teamwork. How does that work?
They make these simulations, like a virtual house, and they put robots and human avatars in there to see how they interact. It's a safe way to train the AI and see what it can do.
That makes sense. What are some of the challenges in making robots that can actually collaborate with humans?
Well, it's not just about giving them physical skills or even a sense of touch. They need to understand what humans are trying to do, adapt when things change, and communicate. It's a lot to figure out. But Meta's making progress.
So they're teaching robots to be more like partners, not just tools, like they need some kind of social skills.
Exactly. That's a big part of PARTNR. They're putting the robots in real-world situations in the simulation. So they can learn to anticipate what humans need, understand their goals, and respond in a helpful way.
That's pretty amazing. It's like they're learning to read our minds.
It is kind of like that. It's
Yeah.
going beyond just giving them commands and creating a real partnership.
This is all really cool, but What about the ethics of all this? I mean, as robots become more advanced in our lives more, are there risks we should be thinking about?
That's a really important question, and it's something Meta takes seriously. They're talking with ethicists and policymakers and the community to come up with ethical guidelines for AI and robotics.
So they're not just building the tech, they're thinking about how it affects society.
Definitely. They're all about responsible innovation, making sure these advancements actually benefit everyone. That includes addressing potential biases in the AI, making sure how it works is transparent, and working together globally.
It's good to hear that they're thinking about these things.
Yeah, it's important to build those guardrails as we go.
After learning all this about how Meta is approaching things, it sounds like we're on the right track.
I think so. It's exciting to see all these breakthroughs happening. And with companies like Meta leading the way, the future of robots looks pretty bright. Maybe we'll even become friends with them someday.
All right, I think we've covered a lot today. From Digit 360 and how sensitive it is to Meta Sparsh and PARTNR, Meta is definitely pushing the limits of AI and robotics.
And doing it ethically, which is important.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember about touch-sensitive AI?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that we're entering a new era in robotics. Robots are becoming our partners, not just tools. And it's happening because of these incredible advancements in touch and AI, because people are committed to doing it the right way.
Well said. And as always, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts about the future of AI and robots? What are you excited about? What are you worried about? Let's keep this conversation going.
We're all in this together. Let's explore what's possible and make the future of AI something we can all be proud of.
We've been talking about robots that can feel, and Meta's work in this area is pretty amazing to think about, like robots helping with surgery, or even just helping us out around the house.
Yeah, and one of the areas where this is really having an impact is prosthetics. Think about it, giving someone a prosthetic limb that can actually feel again.
That would be incredible. How far along are they with that kind of thing?
They're doing some really amazing stuff. They're using technology like Digit 360 to make prosthetic hands with super sensitive fingertips. They can feel all sorts of things: pressure, texture, temperature.
So someone with a prosthetic could feel how warm a handshake is, or the texture of a flower. That's unbelievable.
It is. It's about giving them back that connection with the world through touch, which they might have thought they'd lost forever. It's not just about the physical sensation either. It can really improve their quality of life and give them more confidence and independence.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's great to hear that this technology can have such a positive impact on people's lives.
It really can. And it goes beyond just prosthetics. They're using it in virtual reality, too, to make the experiences more realistic. Imagine being able to actually feel the things you touch in virtual reality.
Okay, now that's just cool.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about some of the challenges and ethical things to think about with all this.
Right. It's powerful technology.
Mhm.
So we need to be careful and make sure we're using it the right way.
So what are some of the big questions we need to be asking ourselves as this technology keeps developing?
Well, data privacy is a big one. Robots with these sensitive sensors are going to be collecting a lot of information. Some of it might be sensitive. We need to have rules about how they collect that data, what they do with it, how they store it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the conversations about facial recognition and stuff.
Exactly. And we need to watch out for biases in the systems. Like any AI, these robots are only as good as the data they're trained on. If the data is biased, the robots could end up making unfair decisions.
So we need to make sure the data is diverse and reflects the real world.
Exactly. And we need to be talking about how all this is going to affect society, what happens to jobs that require human touch, how do we make sure everyone has access to this technology, not just a few people.
Yeah, those are important things to think about.
They are, but I'm optimistic. I think if we plan carefully, talk openly about it, and stick to our ethics, we can make this work and use robots to make our lives better.
I like that, optimistic. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive. We've talked about some pretty amazing stuff, especially how robots are getting better at feeling and all the cool things that could lead to.
It's been fun talking about it with you. And I think the main takeaway is that robots aren't just about processing information anymore. They're starting to experience the world more like we do.
And we're all a part of making that happen. So we keep thinking about this stuff. What are your hopes and concerns about the future of AI? Let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. The future is in our hands. Let's make it a good one.